Yesterday at 11 a.m. I was alone at home, DH went to work early, and I was just starting my daily cleaning routine when the bell rang. I, 30, peeked through the hole and saw my sister, 36, and her 3 kids, 5, 3, 2. I did not open the door and talked to her behind it, and I'll explain why in a minute. She said she had an argument with her chronically ill husband, 34, and wanted to once again punish him by keeping the kids away from him until he apologized to her for what he said, which was regular argument stuff. Explanation: she started doing this when he got sick. Every time she gets in an argument with my brother-in-law, she take the kids and refuses to bring them back till he apologized to her. He has a medical condition that prevents him from getting outside the house, and she has been using that, and instead of taking the kids to her aunt's house this time she brought them to me since aunt is out of town. She asked that I take the kids for 2 days, but I refused and pointed out how unacceptable and wrong of her to punish her husband who's already sick, and using the fact that he can't drive to go pick his kids up or at least see them against him, she'd keep them away for days. She started talking about how her husband doesn't care about her hurt feelings and how much she does for him. Also how this method has proven to be effective since it got him to recognize his wrongdoings and apologize, but I replied that he probably was only apologizing just to see the kids. I said it wasn't fair for the kids either, but she said they agreed to stay with me and told me to open the door cause they missed me so much. I refused and said I won't be responsible when brother-in-law finally decides to do something about this and get the cops involved. She yelled she's their mother, so the cops won't do a damn thing about it, and assured me my brother-in-law would never do that, knowing how much she's cared for him, but I stood my ground and said I won't be opening the door. Period. She yelled, saying I was unsupportive and selfish to keep my nieces and nephew out and refused to open the door for them. I suggested she go work her issues out like a rational adult and stop pulling cruel stunts that affects her husband and the kids' emotional and mental health. She took offense to that and said I was clearly on my brother-in-law's side. She shamed me in front of the kids for 10+ minutes, then left. Hours later my dad, who lives in another town, called shaming and berating me for not opening the door for his grandchildren, then insulting my sister and siding against her. I explained my reasons, but he said the kids are with my cousin and insisted I go pick them up. My husband said I should have opened the door for the kids and that he could see how dad would be upset with me for not taking the kids until my sister's conflict with her husband is resolved. He wants me to go pick the kids up, but I keep refusing, but I feel like unsupportive of my sister. More details about my brother-in-law. He has a chronic illness that's gotten worse lately and limited his ability to do most things. To my knowledge he's catheterized, wears a cannula and a medical device, so he can't drive or walk outside the house. My parents never liked him because he was already sick when my sister married him and said she was wasting her life with him, but she always say she loves him, but I'm not even sure judging by her recent actions. Not the idiot. You have nailed it on the head. Your sister is weaponizing her kids against a guy who can't fight back. The guy is chronically ill and can't even leave the house to get them. She is abusive. There, I said it. She shouldn't worry about the cops getting involved, it's civil at this point, but if husband gets a lawyer involved, will he have ammunition against her? Her husband, if he doesn't divorce her, will resent her, probably already does, and her kids, when they're old enough to figure out what she's doing, will resent her. Your sister is using the kids as a tool against her husband, and I commend you for not taking part in such a poor decision. Unless the argument is centered around brother-in-law abusing someone in the household, your sister's behavior is simply deplorable. I really don't understand how both your father and your husband can side with your sister in this situation. I'm not a lawyer or a cop, but I believe you're right about the potential of brother-in-law getting the cops involved and not wanting to be a part of that. I've heard stories about fathers kidnapping their own children, and I don't see why it wouldn't be the same for a mother doing so. Your sister is emotionally abusing a vulnerable adult and treating her own children like objects. Honestly, I hope she gets reported soon because her behavior is sick. Your dad's willingness to enable her explains a lot, but your husband's decision to support her over you is odd. Even if you took away the abuse component, it's incredibly entitled and selfish for her to just show up at your house with no warning and the expectation that you'll be their full-time caregiver to her kids for at least a couple of days. Even if he could care less about your brother-in-law, why is your husband okay with you being treated like that? I hope you have some people in your life who aren't so toxic. I, 17, babysit for 3 different families on a semi-regular basis. I got the first job when I was 14, and I still babysit for that family. I added 2 more regulars since. It has made some cracks appear in my relationship with my dad and his family. When my dad remarried when I was 9, he was always making me responsible for his wife's then 2-year-old son. It drove me crazy. I would need to entertain him at least twice while I was there. Well, they did crap. If she wanted to grab groceries, I had to go and keep an eye on the kid. Then they had another child, and I was expected to help with the baby with diapers, feeding, etc. One time I told my dad I didn't want to, and he was so freaking pissed. He told me I was part of the family, whether I liked it or not, and he didn't care if I didn't want them or if it was hard because of the divorce. I was going to accept and love them and treat them like family. Over and over he made it clear my feelings came after everyone else's, and it was multiple people versus me. And also how plenty of kids just swim through those changes, and it's bullcrap to struggle when so many kids deal with divorce just fine. It's what made him pissed when I asked my mom to go to court and cut my hours over there. So I was only there every second weekend. And then I got the babysitting job at 14 and I wouldn't go over there to babysit for them. But it was always an obligation and not something I was rewarded or compensated for. Now that I'm so much older and doing it for multiple families, he finally offered to pay me when he asked me to babysit. I still said no. Our relationship just isn't to a point where I want to spend time with those kids. Not because they did anything to me and I don't blame them. But to me they are just kids. Not family or people I love spending time with because it was made such a freaking chore. My dad is pissed I won't babysit and was even more pissed when I told him he couldn't pay me enough to babysit for him. He said he is my father and this is my family. I find him an idiot and not a father I want in my life. But he thinks I'm being petty and childish, so I wanted to come here and find out whether I'm the idiot or not. Not the idiot. I've never believed in babysitting your siblings. You either do it willingly and free of charge or you don't. It's not fair for parents to make the older kids watch and take care of their younger half or full siblings when they don't want to. I especially can't stand parents who ask their kids to change their siblings' diapers or feed them. Dude, you decided to have kids, don't give the dirty jobs to other people. Your father doesn't seem to care about you. I'm sorry to say that to you that way, but it's just obvious he wants the image of a perfect happy family without actually doing the job. You don't say what caused the divorce or how long before his remarriage it happened. Or whether the father of her older child is in the picture. There are a lot of factors which make it hard for a blended family to work. One of them is an age gap, which is fairly large for you. Your half-siblings were babies when you met them as a preteen babysitter. They are never going to be close to you, regardless of the rest of the dynamic. I am a child of divorce, and I have also divorced and remarried. From my experience, the most you can hope for is for step-siblings to be civil to each other. You were his child, and your needs matter too. He should be trying to build a relationship with you before expecting favors. If you felt appreciated and cared for, then the situation would be very different. Family goes both ways, sometimes you help them, but they also help you in return. Babysitting, even if you were getting paid, would probably make your relationship with him worse, not better, because you feel used. Your visits should be with your dad, not just your siblings. This isn't just about what he wants. At this point, you need to consider what you want. Do you want to spend time with just your dad, just for coffee or lunch? It's hard to tell if you have a relationship with him outside of babysitting, or if that is just the focus of this post. My girlfriend, 26, and I, 28, have been together for 3 years, and I think she could be the one. We've talked about getting engaged, I've even shopped around for rings. We've discussed marriage, kids, buying a house, everything. She struggles with anxiety and depression, but she manages it pretty well with the help of therapy and medication. But she still has breakdowns and periods of feeling overwhelmed. She has also always been very private about her family. I've only met her brother, and she rarely ever speaks of her childhood or her parents. I've asked her about it plenty of times, but she doesn't really open up about it, so I kind of stopped asking. A couple weeks ago we had some of her friends over for drinks, and I got to talking with one of her oldest friends over a cigarette. Her friend had a few drinks already and started talking about old stories from high school. She told me a few stories about my girlfriend's family and parents and asked if my girlfriend had told me any of these stories. I told her that my girlfriend had not because she pretty much doesn't tell me anything about her family. Her friend said that it's probably because her family is messed up. I asked what that meant, and she said that both her mom and grandma are currently in medical institutions and that her dad left when my girlfriend was a teenager after her mom had an outburst towards him. She said her dad tried to get full custody of the kids, but her mom was able to convince a judge to keep the kids with her instead of moving away with her dad. A couple years later, when my girlfriend was in college, her mom was institutionalized as well. I was in shock. I couldn't even process all that she was telling me. Thankfully, someone else called us over to play a game and the conversation ended, but I couldn't stop thinking about it all night. Nor could I stop thinking about it for a few days after. Finally, I got up the courage to ask my girlfriend about it. I told her what her friend and I talked about, and she immediately got upset. She was mad at her friend for telling me, but also mad at me for bringing it up. I told her we've talked about marriage and kids, and that this was the kind of thing I felt she could trust me to talk about with. She said she doesn't tell anyone about her family because whenever she does, people run away. I told her I wasn't going to run away, but I did feel sad that she felt she couldn't talk to me about this. I told her I understand why she doesn't, and I won't force her to, but that if we are going to get married and have kids, these are the kind of things I feel I deserve to know about. I told her that the history of mental illness is kind of a concern if we decide to have kids, and she flipped. She said she doesn't owe me crap about her past and that this is exactly why she didn't tell me, because she knew I would use it as an excuse to run away. She called me an idiot and stormed out and hasn't talked to me since. I'm so confused. Am I really the idiot here? No idiots here. But your timing was bad. This info is so personal and shameful to her she was afraid to even tell you, her boyfriend of 3 years, for fear you'd back away like everyone else has. Her friend just outed her about it. I mean, this just happened without her having any say or control about how and when you received that information, and pretty much right away you go to, well, the history of your family's mental health is a concern if we want to have kids. She just heard her worst fears confirmed, whether that was your intention or not. If there's an idiot here, I think it's her friend. No idiots here. She has trauma. Lots and lots of trauma. Give her space, but make sure she knows you aren't going anywhere and that this doesn't change how you envision your future, marriage, kids, but that knowing this is important to you as it will better help you support your future children, assuming that is true. If this does mean you may not want to marry her or have children with her, then her fears aren't just a trauma response but also justified. And you need to figure out your crap before you continue this relationship. This is a huge thing to keep from someone you are considering a lifelong relationship with. If I were you, I would refuse to move forward with your relationship until you discuss her family history and any other things she might be hiding from you. If she doesn't tell you, then she doesn't trust you, which is not good for a relationship. Additionally, family health history is a major thing when it comes to having kids. You should know what to expect when you have kids, and if there is a high chance of passing on bad genetics, prone to mental instability, then I would consider not having biological kids and rather adopting instead. My fiancée Anne, 27, and I, 26, are planning our wedding. We've been together for 6 years, and she's the love of my life. Anne asked my twin sister Lisa to be her maid of honor, and Lisa accepted. At first, we were both really happy about this. It took a while for my family to accept Anne as my partner, since she was the first out trans person they'd ever met, but for the last 4 years or so everyone has been great friends. But as wedding planning has been happening, Lisa has started acting really strangely. She and Anne went dress shopping, and Anne came back really upset. She had wanted to wear a form-fitting dress with a mermaid skirt, but Lisa told her that I would be disappointed if she didn't get a big ball gown because I'm very traditional. I'm the opposite of traditional, and no one would describe me that way. I'm fine with whatever Anne chooses to wear. I have no idea where Lisa got this from. Then, when they were looking at flowers, Lisa told Anne the first hate orange and she shouldn't get any orange flowers. Again, I don't hate orange. I've never hated orange. I agreed on orange as one of our colors. Again, no idea why she'd say this. And last week, when they were talking about the bridal shower, Lisa told Anne that I'd be upset if all our family wasn't invited, including second cousins. I haven't seen most of my second cousins in years, and they aren't invited to the wedding. I don't give a crap who's at Anne's shower. But Lisa is pressuring her to drop several friends to make space for these cousins. Anne isn't sure if she wants to confront Lisa about this. It took her a long time to be accepted by the family, and even though she wants the weird lies to stop, she's nervous about alienating my sister. But I'm furious that Lisa is manipulating Anne for whatever mysterious reason and ruining her wedding planning experience. Would I be the idiot if I told her to knock this off, even if it makes her pull back from us? Not the idiot. One of the keys to a successful marriage and harboring a good relationship between your spouse and your family is that you deal with your family problems, even when your spouse is on the receiving end, and vice versa. It's super easy for in-laws to hate on their children's and siblings' spouse and dismiss their complaints and concerns. Your admonishment as their son and brother carries far more weight and shows, from the get-go, that you back your wife and will not be tolerating any kind of mistreatment towards her. No matter the reason why Lisa is doing this, it is disrespectful and shows she's probably not going to care if Anne calls her out on it. If she did care, she wouldn't have done it at all. This is your sister and your problem, you need to fix it. You would be the idiot if you wouldn't confront her. I think you are the idiot a bit for not doing it until now. Your twin sister is either lying or is very wrong. Either way, she is controlling and out of line. The wedding is about you two, not her, and she should respect it. I know it's scary to confront her, but you can do it in a good way. Asking where are those behaviors come and try to work it out. Don't let your married life start from a wedding controlled by someone else, and protect your SO from your family when needed. I think you actually need to confront her. First of all, if this is unusual behavior for your sister, you need to find out what has changed and why she is suddenly acting like this. Otherwise, if she is normally like this, you need to firmly set your boundaries now so that she knows you aren't going to let her interfere in your marriage the way she is trying with your wedding. In any case, it is obvious she is upsetting your fiancé, and that needs to stop. It is yours and your fiancé's wedding, not your sister's. She needs to step back and stop trying to control things. And don't accept the "but I was just trying to help" excuse. If she were really trying to help, she would be spending more time listening and less time telling.